Hey, welcome back to the Experience here. My name is Blake, and today we're doing a tier list. We're going to be breaking down the elite and unique artifacts, or I guess colorless spells here. And so to define our categories here, rather than just your standard S, A, B, C, D, F tiers, we have a few different kind of tiers today. So we're doing flexible and powerful, narrow and powerful, fine and flexible, narrow and fine, and then just kind of bad cards that I wouldn't really play. So to start us off here, we'll go ahead and start off with our mixes. And for each of these here, they're going to go into this narrow yet powerful section here. So if you're not familiar, they're pay 1, sacrifice the mix, reduce the threshold by 3, as well as the mana cost by 3. Really good cards, but they're just more narrow than you would think. You would think that you'd be able to play them in anything, but when you only get 3 cards in your hand, there's a real downside to paying 1 mana and one of your card draws just to reduce the next cost by 3. So, good cards, powerful cards, especially whenever they go off right, but they're just kind of fine. Magellan Globe here, we're going to go ahead and put in this narrow and fine category. Incredibly good with Pathfinder. Like, really cool whenever you're able to play it out. You have it on turn 2, you're dancing around the realm, you're playing sites all over the place as if the globe is connected. But it's kind of just fine. It's narrow in the sense that it's good with Pathfinder, but with everything else, not the best card. So Magnetic Muzzle here, it's fine. So Barrow loses all non-basic abilities. It cannot drop Magnetic Muzzle at the end of each player's turn. If Magnetic Muzzle is abandoned, that player attaches it to a nearby minion. It's fine. So all non-basic abilities, it's still going to be able to attack, and so it's not, it's honestly, I guess it just goes into the kind of bad. If it can still attack, I don't really know quite what the point of being able to even play that's really going to be. So next we'll go to the all-terrain. Maybe in the future, if there's some sort of Voltron element, so Bearer has Burrowing, Submerge, Void Walk, if it's a minion. I'm going to put it in the kind of bad category for now. Maybe if there's like a place where you just want to have like this one really strong, you can't burrow it kind of minion and it has a ton of damage. I don't know. Maybe in the next mini set, when dragons come out, I could see it being good. You can't burrow it, you can't drown it. Maybe there's something to that, but you're paying 3 for it. For now, I'm gonna put it in the kind of bad tier. We'll see. All right, Angel's Egg. We're gonna put in this flexible and fine category. I think it's flexible in the sense that you can put it in any deck. It's fine. You can't go above 20 life, and so I don't see it being like a phenomenal card. But it's gonna get the job done. You're gonna be able to gain a life a turn. Alright, so Beltrify at the end of your turn, untap all nearby, being the keyword here, allies. I'm going to put this in the kind of bad tier. In an aggro deck where you can untap and that way you can block, being able to block is really the benefit of being able to do this. I haven't quite found a benefit or a reason to be able to do this right now. So we're going to put it in this kind of fine tier. Okay. Next, Black Obelisk. So this is where at the start of your turn you lose 2 life and then you gain 2 mana. I think it's flexible and really any deck would love to gain 2 mana, but you're just fine in the sense that you're gaining 2 life. I wouldn't call it bad, but it's not quite as good. I think it's like flexible in any deck you go in, but I think it's just kind of a fine effect. So that's kind of why I'm going to put it here. Devil's Egg at the start of turn. Your opponent loses a life. I'm going to put this in the narrow yet powerful tier here. And the reason why is if you can submerge this under a site, you can burrow it under a site. It's really hard if your opponent isn't built or ready to be able to move a Devil's Egg to move it. Unlike Angel's Egg, where you can't gain past 20 life, you can definitely continue to drop until you get to Death's Door. Now, you're not going to be able to finish anybody off once they're at Death's Door, but I think in that case, like, yeah, it's pretty powerful in the sense that you're just taking somebody down, in a control shell. And that's where the narrow comes from. All right, Screaming Skull. It's definitely narrow, and in Battle Mage, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to. We're gonna start with it in the powerful tier because I would say in Battle Mage it is pretty strong. You can, potentially knock out an opponent. You can polymorph one of their creatures, turn it into a frog, kill it, draw a card, and then attack again. And in those cases, when Screaming Skull pops off, like, it's really good. But it's really narrow, and so even just to put it in the same category as the mixes, oh man, this is tough. I think it's gonna have to be in the find. Like, it's not on the same level as the mixes here. Yeah, I think that's the right thing. So, Chain of Prometheus, whenever a player draws a card, that player taps their strongest minion. I think this card's actually better than maybe what people would think. And I think we're going to put in this flexible and fine tier. It's flexible in the sense that, if you're not playing a whole bunch of big minions, you're playing a lot of small minions. I could see it being fine in those decks. I don't see it being super heavily played. And so maybe in that category, maybe it's more on the narrow tier if you're playing this kind of smaller drops. And then I could see this being a good sideboard card for sure. And so maybe in that case, let's go ahead and move it to the narrow and fine tier. In the sideboard, you're playing against an opponent that have a ton of big creatures, and then you're able to drop the Chains of Prometheus, tapping them down. I think that's probably the right place to go. Landed. So this is Bearer has you control this site, and I think it's pretty strong. Now, you're not going to get the mana until it's actually the start of your turn. The mana values don't start until they don't check until the beginning of the turn, but it's still a really strong site because even if you control the site, your opponent doesn't, so they lose a mana. So that's pretty strong, even if you don't necessarily gain it on the turn that it comes down. I think it's pretty powerful when it does. Same thing with Maddening Bells. I think Maddening Bells is a pretty good card here. Spells cast by nearby spellcaster cost 2 more. It's 4. So it's narrow in the sense that you gotta be a deck that wants to be able to take this and drop this off at an opponent's site. However, when it does, it's pretty strong and it's hard to get around if you're not playing a whole bunch of spellcasters. You're not really moving away from Maddening Bells anytime soon. Mask of Mayhem. So whenever a nearby minion can attack, it must nearby strikes deal double damage. So this elite here, I think it's fine in the sense that it must attack, and the odds are like you're going to want to attack. But I just don't know if you want your opponent to be able to get this. Oh man, because if you're attacking a lot, it might die. If it dies, your opponent picks it up. It could just be buried. Yeah, it's gonna go in the kind of bad tier. I think so. Just with it being an artifact, it's not. It doesn't go down with the minion. The opponent can pick it up. I think that's fine. Drums of Doom, definitely narrow, and it's a fine card. I think I'd much rather have some of these top cards up here, but when it works, it works. And same thing I think goes with the catapult, being able to use 2 of your minions to be able to discard a card, deal damage. It costs 5. It's not bad. I've seen it work. I've seen it be good, especially in discard strategy type shells. But I wouldn't necessarily expect it to be the top. All right, next you have the Purge Juggernaut. At the start of your turn, Purge Juggernaut taps and moves to an adjacent location. Kill all minions there. Adjacent is that kind of plus pattern side. It's 6/4. Man, I'm trying to think. It's hard for me to say. I feel like this is a fine card. I think it'd be cool in a cube. I don't know if I'd be seeing this in a constructive deck. I'm going to put it in the narrow and fine category for now. Alright, Undertaker Engine. At the beginning of your turn, you may burrow and unburrow any combination of artifacts or minions atop this site. In the future, maybe there's something that is beneficial by it, but for now, paying 7 for this effect for a 4 it's just not good. This is just kind of a bad card right now. Alright, we got a couple of our cores, and this is going to be our first flexible and powerful sets of spells. We might as well Let's just get all the cores up here. They're flexible because they give you an extra mana. It doesn't matter what you're casting. They give you a threshold that lasts indefinitely. All the cores are going to go up top, and I'm sure this is obvious that like flexible and powerful. This is definitely where Philosopher's Stone comes in. Now, if you're playing a mono color or even a two color deck, this is even at two colors. Like you need to think, are you playing enough of a mix to where you're going to be able to get a good enough discount to make Philosopher's Stone worth it? This isn't a card that I feel like is a must play in a deck. You only have a 1 in 40 chance, well, I guess 3 in 40 chance of seeing it in your opening hand, even if you mulligan. Like, you're not seeing Philosopher's Stone every turn. The best decks aren't winning because they play Philosopher's Stone. But it does help in those decks. It's flexible, it's powerful. All of these are really good cards. But if you don't have one, don't feel like you can't play Sorcery without one of the cores, without a Philosopher's Stone. That's just not the case. Alright, so mechanism here is quite strong in the right deck. It's narrow, and this is like not everything is using a random outcome, and because of that, I'd probably put it below the mixes. Still really strong, probably better than Devil's Egg, and the ability to be able to just decide what you get off of or what you target off a Thunderbolt, or off what you pull out of the graveyard from a raise. That really good. You can also pull this out with a Princess, a Highland Princess, and because of that, it also makes it really strong. Same thing as the mixes. A lot of the time you see Highland Princess just pull a stone or a core, but it can get really any of these cards, any of these 10 here, and those are really strong cards. So, but I digress a little bit here. Gilded is probably flexible and fine is where I'm going to put it. Probably below Angel's Egg, and we'll put it right here. If you're playing a whole bunch of minions and they're bigger cost and it makes sense to be able to bounce it back or take all the damage, I think that's good. And so if you're not familiar with what it does here, if bear is a minion and would die, instead fully heal it and banish the gilded instead. And so, if you're playing an ancient dragon and then it takes lethal amount of damage, you just banish this and then it stays around. That could be good if you're playing a whole bunch of high drop creatures and then you're able to play this one unique here to be able to save a big valuable creature. I think there's some value in that. Alright, Manuscript is going to go in the top of our narrow and fine category. I think it's stronger than maybe what this is indicating here. I love this against turtles. If you're playing turtles in your deck, so tufted turtles, it doesn't take damage the first time, and so you can use this. Play it on a tufted turtles, tap it, draw a card, and then the turtles stick around. Really cool combination here. Same thing, there's also the blue 2 cost spellcaster that says something illusionist. That can also be a really good one because you can pull an illusionist out of the graveyard pile, so you can just continue to recycle them over and over, drawing with a manuscript, not money if they die. Blasted Oak here. I want this to be a better card. I love the art. If a spell non-basic ability can target an order of precedence, Blasted Oak, its sites or location, or anything else that sites or location it must. I want this to be good. But they could just cast the desert and make it go after the Blasted Oak, and then it would. It's hard for me, we're just gonna put it in this narrow and fine. I think it's a cool effect, and I just don't know. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe there's a good reason to play in the future, but for now, it's gonna be narrow and fine. Crown of Victors, I'm gonna go ahead and put in this flexible and fine. You can play this in an aggressive deck, you can play it in a battle mage deck. What it says is bearer has +3 power if they've ever killed a minion. So this could turn your battle mage into a 6 power attacking avatar, which is awesome and great and stuff. But you have to kill somebody first, and so it's just it's flexible in the sense that it can go on an avatar of Earth, it can go on a battle mage, it can also go on a minion. but those minions can be removed and then picked up by somebody else, and so it makes it tough. 7 League Boots with the new blocking rules. I'm going to put it in this flexible and fine category, probably above Angel's Egg, because you can attach this to a big minion here, and with the new blocking rules, they can fly all over the map and block. And so if you're playing something, it's untapped, movement +7, it's a good chance you're going to be able to get there and block the attack and hopefully get a good kill out of it. Okay. Doomsday Device. We're going to kind of put this a budge of Purge, probably below Chains, and I think it's fun. I think it's narrow. You're going to have to be a deck that wants to drop artifacts off in your opponent's sites. But if you can, I'm sure it's great. But to deal 20 damage in the center there, it seems like a fun card. It's really narrow. It's fine. And maybe it's kind of bad, but who knows. Okay. Next, the Immortal Throne. I think we're going to put this one right here, because being able to draw cards is really strong. If you play this first, and then you follow it up by a sight, a core, you're drawing 2 cards. Paying 4 for 2 is really good, even if your opponent drops a 2-drop. You can build your deck in a way where there's payoffs for playing Immortal Throne. We'll see. I think it's flexible in the decks that it can go in. I think it's fine. I wouldn't say it's top tier. Maybe it even drops down here. Cool card, but I think there's better options. Orb. I'm going to put below Manuscript, above Drums, I believe. And so here, what Orb enables you to do is really duplicate your spell. So the first time each turn a magic spell is cast nearby, Orb, so the Orb is actually creating the copy, and the spell's controller may choose new targets. So you kind of get to double up on your spells. And so imagine casting a major explosion, being able to deal 14 damage for 7 mana would be pretty strong. Spear of Destiny, I'm going to put in the same boat here, probably below, or maybe below Drums. Being able to just tap and throw the spear at any minion anywhere. It teleports there and kills it. Really cool card. Honestly, maybe it comes up here because it's so flexible. It can be used really in anything, but it's just like your opponent can pick it up and then also use it. It costs 5. 5 to remove one, especially if they're going to tap and throw it back at you. We'll see. Alright, and then last but not least, Pendulum of Peril. We're going to put it in narrow and fine because the effect that it has is at the end of each player's turn. Pendulum of Peril kills all minions at its current location and another location adjacent to that player's choice. And so it's at each player's turn, so you get to take the first turn, but then your opponent can take the one after that, potentially helping you wipe your own board. We'll see. I think it's narrow in the decks that you don't want to have a whole bunch of creatures, but it is colorless removal, and maybe that's something that Water wants to have. Who knows? But this is the tier list I have for the elite and unique colorless spells for Sorcery Contested Realm. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know if you would have put anything different. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a blessed day. Take care.